I'm going to level with you here. I really don't quite know why it's so satisfying to sit and watch things roll down tracks, but I genuinely enjoy it so much. Just that little act. It's like I'm hardwired to just want to see how things end up falling. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel today. My name is Carly and today I'm going to be reviewing the brand new title from Good Games Publishing. This is 12 Rivers. I have had my eye on this game for a while. I want to say this was on my Essenspiel, like the games I was looking forward to at Essenspiel last year, I'm pretty sure. So I think it is just barely kind of hitting shelves in America and people are able to get their hands on it. But ever since I saw this was the very first image that I saw of this game. And I was sold. I didn't need any other information because there really is just something so genuinely fun about having marbles on a track, right? Releasing them and see where they go. I know even like my kids will watch, there's like sensory videos where people will just have marble tracks and they'll just keep these marbles constantly going and you just keep watching them roll down the track. Something about it. I think us as humans, I think we're genuinely hardwired to just enjoy that motion, right? And we've seen this a handful of times in board games, right? Of kind of this marble mechanism, but this kind of looked different to me. It looked slightly more interesting and kind of more dynamic with what you are doing. Now I do have a top head camera set up. I'll show you that right now. I kind of had to adjust it slightly because this board is actually slightly at an angle and the overhead camera just didn't do it justice. So hopefully the camera that I have set up right now will kind of show you what is happening on this board as I kind of go through the rest of this review. But before we jump too far into this video, if this is the first video of mine that you've seen, welcome to Board Game Buzz. We're so happy to have you here. If you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, doing all the good stuff to support me and the channel, I would really appreciate it. But without further ado, let's dive into my thoughts on 12 Rivers. In 12 Rivers, you are basically taking on the role of one of these ancient, kind of mysterious tribes that is living within this forest. And really the goal of the game, or what you are trying to do, is collect these pearls that will be, they're like magical pearls that will be slowly rolling down the river. Now every single tribe has 3 tokens that is associated with that particular tribe. So for example, I'm playing this yellow player here, or the yellow tribe. This section of the board is actually tracking turn order. So it would start with the yellow player, going on to red, then blue, and continuing down for that particular round. Now the game plays over 5 rounds, and this is typically what you are going to be doing every single round. When it is your turn, you will take one of your little tokens here, placing it into one of the many zones that you can place. Now, based on what zone or what level you place at, you may actually have to spend a certain number of cards in order to do so. You will begin the game with a handful of these cards, and essentially the main purpose for them is spending for certain locations on this board. But if at a future turn it was your turn and you had 2 cards that were the same, you actually could spend those cards to then activate the ability that is on them. So that might be why you might want to hold on to some of these cards versus spending them. But I kind of found in my games, I spent them more than I actually saved them and was able to actually activate their ability. So very quickly, let's chat about, we'll kind of chat about the different zones that will potentially be activating on your turn. The main one that you will be activating is kind of the 12 Rivers board, right? Now there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different zones or areas that you can potentially slot your little token into. Now, if you notice, you kind of want to be further up on this river as often as you can be, because then you are more likely to get the particular colors that were randomly assigned up here at the top of the board that always randomly get redealt out at the beginning of every single round. But the trick is, the further up the river you go, the more expensive it is to place. So maybe there even comes a time where you don't have any cards that you can pay for in regards to up here. So you have to slot down lower where the cost is 0, or you might even place so low that you can actually collect a card instead of having to spend one. So that's kind of how this top board here works. There also is one place that is available down here in this lake, which whatever pearls are left uncollected after all of them have been resolved and whatever end up in this lake here, if you are the person who decided to go here, you actually will be able to claim all of those pearls, which can be very beneficial. Another place, though, where you can actually choose to place your token is down here at the bottom of the board, which is essentially where you can gain these character cards. Now, these character cards are really important. The first thing that's going to happen, which I'll throw up some additional B-roll here so you can kind of see a little bit closer. But when you are selecting these, they're actually, every single card will actually give you the ability to collect more cards to your hand, which can be very beneficial because you kind of go through cards really quickly in this game. But not only that, they are giving you slots that you can then store these pearls that you will be collecting throughout the round. Okay, so very briefly, I kind of jumped ahead and threw up a handful of these tokens, just kind of showing that this is where these players placed for this particular round. It also is important to note that if you're playing a 4-player game, you will play with all of the rivers, but if you will play a 2-player game or a 3-player game, you actually will only play with a certain number of these rivers. So right now, because we're doing a 3-player kind of example, not all of these rivers are actually in play. So that's just something to kind of be aware. But we're going to skip forward to through the round and pretend that everybody placed. I'm just realizing that I forgot to set up something. So depending on what round you're in, some of these little fairy tokens may be placed out on the board. Essentially what these are is if you are the first player to place adjacent to one of those fairy tokens, you will actually be able to collect those. They just give you bonuses on your turn, and think of it as like a bonus action that you can activate. But everybody placed, so technically all these fairy tokens would have been claimed by those players. Now, this is where we actually will release all of the marbles and they will fall down the tracks, again, stopping where players had placed their tokens. Starting at the top and working your way down, these players will now be able to select one of the marbles that are on these tracks, adding it to their llama. Now, that's what normally happens on your turn, but again, you might have fairy tokens or cards, for example, this fishing net that you might be able to discard or play that potentially allows you to collect more marbles or allows you to change or alter the board a little bit. But once somebody has done their move and collected, for example, this character here, then they will remove their token, allowing the remaining marbles to continue flowing down the river. So let's just kind of move ahead a little bit. Let's say yellow places again. We collect another white marble. Now we're going to go to blue. Let's say blue really wanted this purple one. And it will just continue until all the marbles reach the bottom. As you are collecting these marbles and placing them on your, it's a llama or an alpaca? I think it's an alpaca. I don't know. But whenever they're on this animal here, if you ever meet the requirements of some of these bonuses that are at the bottom of the board, then you can immediately claim those. So for example, this one, if I had one more white or kind of gray marble on my llama here, I'd be able to immediately collect this, which will be worth 4 additional points at the end of the game. So that's just something important to be aware of. But the very final thing that will happen in the round is the villagers. So if anybody placed down here to collect any villagers, again, you'd have to spend the appropriate amount of cards from your hand, but then you actually can collect those characters, placing them out beside your board. Now, why the characters, again, kind of come back to why the characters are important, is once the round is over and everybody's done that, all the marbles that are on your alpaca here you will then transfer them to your character cards. Any marbles that are on your alpaca at the end of the game will not be worth any points for you. They will only be worth points if they are on character cards. And if your character cards are completed, then you will actually be able to get these additional bonus points that are listed on the bottom of every single character card. In regards to end game scoring, there's this little chart here at the end of the at the bottom of this river board, and this is partially what you are going to score up in regards to endgame points. So all of the marbles that you have collected that are on your character cards will be worth points in and of themselves, along with you will score up any of these additional llama cards, right, that you may have collected, and then you would go through and individually score up every single one of your character cards as well. So that's essentially kind of how a round works and how endgame scoring works. Again, the game will take place over 5 rounds, and then whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. It really is a fairly straightforward game. This was one that I really was hoping it would be simple enough for me to be able to pull out and play with my kids, and it absolutely delivered on that. It didn't overcomplicate anything. Really, the only thing that Jameson struggled with, was my youngest, is he just doesn't quite know how to read yet. So we just had to kind of walk him through and kind of explain a little bit, if you have to fill up this character, so then it'll be worth those additional points. I think he's a touch too young, but Adeline had absolutely no problem. And even Jameson, even though he was slightly too young, he understood this mechanic perfectly. He understood, if I pay more cards, then I am sure to be the first one to get that color that I really need, right? And then this has just such a fun toy factor. And my kids loved, their favorite part was they would take turns pulling this up and letting the marbles roll down. And it's just a very fun, engaging, some might call it a gimmick, but it works really well. It's not a gimmick just for gimmick's sake. I actually found it really engaging, especially on some of these spots where multiple people can block locations, because you're always trying to get to the top, right? So if, let's say, Addie gets here before me, she gets the one that she wants, she pulls it, and then it's me. Something about that, it worked really well, and it really delivered on kind of what I anticipated this aspect of the board being like. Another part I found interesting is in every single round, you can only hold a maximum of 6 colors. So I found that kind of interesting as well, because potentially if you have some of those fairy tokens saved up along with some fishing nets, you actually can get more than that every single round. So you had to kind of pick and choose. You really couldn't get everything that you wanted, especially if you came down here to the river and let's just say a lot of colors came in. You really kind of had to pick and choose the ones that you wanted and the ones that would fulfill your characters. I did like the idea of the marbles that are on your alpaca throughout a round can potentially trigger or get you more points that way. I thought that idea was interesting. I wish it would have been executed a little bit better, because I never really found myself seeking these out. I felt like the points weren't really worth it. And the marbles that you get, even if they fulfill one of these, you never lose them. You can continue to use those same marbles and fulfill your character. So it kind of just felt like a bonus. And I guess from me thinking as like a gamer, I wish it would have been a little bit more attention of, okay, do I want to collect these marbles to get this? Hypothetical, I know this isn't how the game works, but in my head, I wish that like if you collected these, then you would lose those marbles. Or should I save the marbles and use them to fulfill my character? So I wish there was a little bit more of decision making instead of just, I happen to get this and then I can still use those marbles to fulfill. It just felt very forgiving, and I guess for me, I wish there was a little bit more tension. Thinking from, a family, very approachable, friendly game, it does fit in regards to that, right? So it's kind of just your personal preference and what you would like. Another thing I will say is I love the idea of the fairy tokens, and I love the idea of the cards. I think there are inevitably fairy tokens and cards that are simply better than others. Like, in my opinion, I will always try to go after the fishing nets. The other ones I felt like they just didn't help me as much as the fishing nets did. And then the same with the fairy tokens. I just think there are some that just feel more powerful than others. So I wish they were all slightly more balanced, or I equally was kind of drawn to all of them as much as I was drawn to just a handful of them. I will say that I really loved the anime style art on the characters and the characters themselves. I thought that was a really fun puzzle of trying to go after the certain colors that you need in order to fulfill those particular characters. And as the game goes on, you really can get, I know Addie had a decent amount of characters that she was trying to go for, and it was fun. It was kind of fun to almost link them together a little bit more. For example, if you have this owl here, that if you have the most purples, you'll get some more. So you're really trying to then go after those characters that can, of course, give you reason to get more purples. So I found that interesting. At the end of the day, this is kind of one of those games that what you see is what you get. I think this is a very approachable game for families that honestly anybody can play. My kids have asked nonstop to keep playing this game over and over and over again. For me personally, though, this isn't a game that, like, it was really fun to play once, and I'm glad that I was able to play it once, but I don't know if I would feel drawn to pull this off the shelf if somebody else wasn't asking for it, I guess. Because my kids are playing it and wanting to play it because they just love this mechanism, I think this is a great game for families and ones that kids will gravitate towards and really enjoy. I think if I was sitting down with a group of adults, I honestly might pull this out once because the gimmick is fun. But then after playing it that one time, I don't think that like my game group would feel the need to sit down and pull it off the shelf again, if that makes sense. Like, it's so much fun and it's so kind of interesting the first time you do it, but then you do it again. And I guess that's another thing is, in my opinion, there's not a ton of replayability game to game. You feel like you're playing the same game over and over again, which again, the first time is fun. But then the second time comes around, you're like, oh, I feel like we've done this before. Like, it doesn't keep me engaged to the point that I want to pull it off the shelf again. Kind of coming back to the accessibility of families, though, something that I enjoyed was the simplistic nature of how you spend for your placement. Because some games, especially when you're playing with kids, right? Some games can kind of feel a little bit convoluted of, oh, you need a wood and a stone and a resin or something, you know? And for kids, I think that's too much. So for this game to just be as simple as, these cards, yes, you can use them for their abilities, but they're also your resources, right? And when you get cards, when you get characters, you get more cards, and then you can spend those cards on placement. And my kids, for being as young as they are, especially Jamie, the fact that he was able to pick up on that and he totally understood, hey, I need more cards, I'm going to come down here. Hey, I have enough cards in my hand, I can afford to come up here to make sure I get the pearl that I want. It worked really well. So I thought that was very seamless and it worked really good, and it didn't overcomplicate itself, which I really appreciated. When push comes to shove, this is a game that is currently in our collection and will be in our collection for the foreseeable future, honestly, until my kids stop asking to play it. I think that's kind of like the tipping point and where this game is sitting in my collection is it's going on the kids shelf, and the kids, like I said, they have been loving it. If Addie didn't have school today, she really wanted to be in this review because she wanted to share how much she loved this game. I think it is one that kids especially will gravitate towards. I think if you are sitting with an adult group, I would absolutely recommend breaking it out and playing it. It could be a fun kind of lighter game experience. It is this kind of mechanism of the marbles rolling down is fun and is engaging. But then I think if you were to, I just personally don't think you would feel motivated to pull it back off the shelf after doing it one time. In regards to my ranking for 12 Rivers, I'm going to be giving 12 Rivers a 7 out of 10. There is a big part of me that wants to bump it up to a 7.5, but for me, it just doesn't have that level of replayability. But I think if this marble track interests you, again, this production, that's another thing I didn't really touch on, but the production, everything feels super sturdy. It feels really well built. So yeah, if this is something that sounds interesting to you, I would definitely recommend checking it out, just with my kind of couple hesitations or things to be aware of. All right, so thanks for sticking with me while I shared my thoughts on the brand new game 12 Rivers from Good Games Publishing. I wanted to thank Good Games Publishing for sending me this copy to review for you today. And if you enjoyed this video, again, if you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, and doing all the good stuff to support me, I would really appreciate it. But until next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you later.